America is about to turn 250 years old. Wait. First of all, congratulations to America, because this country operates like Peter Pan. No accountability, no self reflection, just vibes and fireworks. Or we elect him president and suddenly we're all like, what is this? 1980s? Shout out to Bill Cosby. What? Too soon? Nah. Too white. Too white. Because apparently, in this country, age ain't nothing but a number. Shout out to Thomas Jefferson. Oh, wait, sorry. I meant R. Kelly. Yeah. Yeah. Now, everybody in here is all of a sudden uncomfortable. Good. Anyway, so quick question, and I promise this is not a trick question or anything crazy like that. But if independence was decided on July the 2nd, 1776, why do Americans celebrate it on July the 4th? I'll wait. No, seriously, this is a legit question. Independence was voted on July the 2nd. Even John Adams, who became the second president, whose son became president as well, thought that it was going to be July 2nd, a national holiday. July 4th is just literally when the paper was finalized. The paperwork. That is what July 4th is. Which means that America didn't fall in love with the decision, it fell in love with the documents. And that's only because Americans have always loved the headlines more than we've loved truth. Now, whenever we start talking about the founding fathers and history and America and such, white folks get very, very emotional. It gets really weird. Voices get hushed. Like literally, history just walked into a room unannounced and uninvited. It's like literally being the only white family on a tour at Nottoway Plantation. Awkward. Yet educational. Don't act like that wasn't one of the best things that 2025 gave us. Okay? Please. And thank you, white people, because I want y'all here too. Thank you for watching. I value you here. So thank you for being here. I truly, truly mean that. But just to let you know, it's about to get really weird. Now, before anybody gets defensive, because we know y'all like to tussle, pause. Relax. This isn't opinion. This is going to be paperwork. For example, let's talk about George Washington, the founding father, main founding father, our very first president with us established as the United States of America. Let's talk about him. Whenever people say things like, you have to judge them by the standards of their time, I always ask the question, whose time? Because even in the 1700s, the time period of the founding of this country, people knew slavery was wrong. Morally, socially, humanely. They knew that. You don't hide something you think is moral. You just don't. You don't dodge laws you think that are just. And you definitely don't chase down people in the middle of the night if you believed that they are happy where they are free. Washington, in his lifetime, enslaved over 300 human beings. Not metaphorically, actually. Enslaved over 300 human beings. And it's not it was complicated, it was complex, it was of their times. No, actually and strategically, he managed them, he tracked them down, he pursued them when they'd run away. And truth be told, historically, George Washington's slaves ran away quite a bit, quite often. No one runs, especially not in this economy, from a good job. So when Pennsylvania created a law that threatened to free enslaved people after being in Pennsylvania for 6 months, and George Washington had property in Pennsylvania, he literally just rotated them out. Every 6 months, he'll bring in new people. And then he'll bring in new people. Then he'd bring in the old people again, and every 6 months, he'd rotate them out like they were inventory. So it always became clock set, freedom delayed. And I know, or I believe I know, that Romy and Michelle wouldn't approve of this level of cartoon villain logic. But George Washington also allegedly ordered all the dogs on his plantation to be killed because he believed that they were being controlled by enslaved people and posed some danger, some uncomfortability to white people. So I don't consider myself to be a rocket scientist, nor do I consider myself to be the brightest tool in the shed all the time. However, let me get this straight. Enslaved black Africans were smart enough to imagine a full-blown puppy plantation takeover plot, while at the same time they were not smart enough to imagine freedom. That is not confusion, y'all. That's actually commitment to the system, commitment to what that was. So here's the parts, I believe, where people want more nuance. Everybody, nowadays people learn nuance and they keep using nuance. And I think this is the part when people wanted nuance. They want me to lower my voice so that they can keep the statues and keep the story about George Washington. That's what they want. But I ain't doing that. I ain't doing that at all. Because this isn't complicated, y'all. It's freedom. And it's the standard. And truth be told, let's be honest. If freedom is the standard that we live by, enslaving hundreds of people fails that standard. If liberty is the principle of America, then chasing human beings back into bondage violates that principle. And if leadership requires moral courage, as we hear people talk about all the time, well then rotating people like inventory to dodge emancipation laws disqualifies that person as a leader. That's not a tragic flaw. That's a choice. That's a choice. So when people ask why I don't revere George Washington, why when I speak about George Washington and other founders, framers, why I don't revere them and why I don't soften my language about them, why I refuse to participate in the national lullaby and myth making and deification of these people, it's because history isn't a vibe. Okay? It's a record. And by that record, fuck George Washington. And before anyone in the comment section or on social media or wherever, before anyone begins to say, you can't say that. Wait, you can't say that. Let me stop you right there. I just did. I just did. Mm-hmm. This isn't about disrespect. This is about history. This is our history in this country. America is turning 250 years old. A quarter of a century, y'all. And at that age, the problem isn't the criticism. The problem is you still lying to yourself about what this has been. You still lying to yourself about what this is. And that's why this show, Black Truth Daily, exists. That's why. Because for centuries, Black people have been treated like witnesses who were never allowed to testify. And that was a law back in the day where Black people couldn't even testify in court. And we're still being treated like witnesses to all of this, who are unable to testify. But we've been here since the beginning. We've definitely been here since before the beginning of the United States. We built the damn infrastructure. We paid the cost. And then we're told to be quiet about it. So somebody or somebody's child or somebody else could feel patriotic. I don't intend to tear America down in this show, or generally. I don't, because I do love my country. But truth doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't soften itself to protect these myths. And it doesn't need to be or to wait for approval. Especially from the people who have benefited the most from the silence. That's not radical. That's America. Right? The First Amendment doesn't protect polite speech. It protects necessary speech. Speech that challenges power. Speech that makes people uncomfortable. Speech that forces a country to look in the mirror instead of looking at fireworks. So no, I'm not breaking any American tradition. I'm actually existing and exercising those traditions. Because if America is going to survive another 250 years, it won't be because we protected the myths or this great American myth. It'll be because finally, we told the truth. And now, Black News Now. Let's move on. Let's move on to Black News Now. Let's also be clear about the moment that we are living. I think that that's important. We are watching large segments of the white Christian church openly align with MAGA, openly align with bigotry, openly align with things many people in this country have fought against to have a more perfect union. Excusing cruelty, excusing corruption, excusing racism, while still claiming to be a moral authority. Me personally, I ain't interested in conforming to white church respectability politics. Black churches have always, and I do mean historically always, had a different relationship to the body, to survival, to expression, because our humanity was never protected in the first place. So now, I want to talk about the First Lady. Bishop Jamal Bryant's wife has been hitting the internet like a storm flurry, right? And it's been her dress that gave the illusion of nudity, showed off her body curves. And according to the story, according to Pastor Jamal, he handpicked it for his wife. And yes, I understand the honor and the reverence and the respect that is given to the role of the First Lady in a church. That role carries history. That role carries symbolism. So I can respect those traditions. But here's an honest question. Can a black woman not be holy and sexy at the same time? Why is that impossible? Can she not be spiritual and embodied? Can she not be respected without being desexualized? We make up all kinds of things, right? You have to wear certain things, dress a certain way, talk a certain way, act a certain way. We place these standards on these people. But the reality of it is, sexuality, being sexy, is not a sin. Hypocrisy is. And the same institutions that is quick to police a black woman wearing a flattering dress are often silent when white evangelical leaders cover up abuse, lies, and political idolatry. Oh, we're about to talk real here. This is truth. This is Black Truth Daily. So we're not going to actually have the real conversations. And I can name some churches. I can name some religious denominations that cover up truth. This wasn't about a dress. And y'all know damn well that wasn't about a dress. It was about control. And black women have always in this country been asked to shrink back, to minimize themselves so that other people can feel righteous. When are we going to stop doing that to each other? When are we going to stop abusing each other in that capacity? Hey, I see nothing wrong with the dress. She looked beautiful. She looked beautiful. Shouts out to Pastor Jamal Bryant and shouts out to First Lady Bryant. Let's move to the next story. Y'all know white people have been debating our appearances, our tone, respectability. Something else happened that I think deserves our black attention. A mother, a black mother, was on a cruise. Well, watch it for yourself, and we'll come back. So as you can see, a black mother saw her 4-year-old child fall into the water on a cruise ship dock. There was no press conference, no moral debates, yet there was no hesitation. She jumped into that water to save her child. And only God knows if she could swim. I would love to have her on this show where we can talk and I can interview her on what motivated her, what was her desire, how did she do it, you know? But she jumped. No calculation, no concern of how it would look, how it would feel, how she would be impacted. No waiting for instructions. This wasn't recklessness, y'all. That was instincts. That was a mother's instinct. And if you really want to know the truth, that's black motherhood in the purest of its forms. Protection without permission. The headline called this heroic. And I will agree, it absolutely was heroic. But for black people, it's also familiar. To us, this is familiar black woman behavior. Because black women have always, and I do mean always, have been expected to move first, to risk first, to sacrifice first, and take the consequences second. Whether it's water, fire, poverty, violence, or a system that never promised safety, black mothers always jump. And they don't do it for applause. Many times they just do it because it's what they have to do. It's what they're compelled to do. They do it because no one else will do it. And that's why I want to talk about this from my own personal perspective, somewhere honest. I want to dedicate this first inaugural episode of Black Truth Daily to my mother and for black mothers everywhere. I can recall as a child, we grew up poor, and I can recall as a child not having enough to eat, so much so that my mom wouldn't eat to allow her 4 children to eat. And I've always been a perceptive person, even a perceptive child. And I would notice that she would do this. And so what I would do is I would pretend that I was full. I would eat half of the food and then pretend like I don't want anything else. And I knew she wasn't going to throw it away. I've actually peered after she sent us to bed and have watched her eat the food. But I did it with that intention. But I learned that compassion and I learned that empathy from her. From her. My black mama. Who's now gone on to the afterlife and have transitioned out of this physical life. But the instinct of compassion, the instinct to care, the instinct to love, to nurture those who look like me, and anyone else in need, I get that from her and I'm thankful for it. And for black women, generally, I'm thankful for y'all. Those who are asked to be everything and are rarely thanked for it. Rarely thanked for it. I love my mom. And I think it's important because for the woman who carried me before I had language, who protected me before I even understood what danger was, who believed in me before I even believed in myself, my mother taught me strength without cruelty, discipline without humiliation, and love that didn't require permission. And through her, I learned something larger, that black mothers are our first institutions. That's right, black mothers. Y'all are our first institutions. Before schools, before churches, before governments that never fully claimed us, black women have always been the ones who made survival look ordinary. They jump first. They hold families together. How many people's big mama is the matriarch that holds the family together? Even with their hands tied, they're holding families together. They teach children how to walk through the world that refuses to see them as innocent when it comes to black kids. They are asked to be strong but not angry, beautiful but not visible, holy but not fully human, and still they show up. They don't get statues. They don't get holidays that tell their truth, that tell the full truth, but they get us. And tonight, I want to say what is too often left unsaid about black women. Black women are not a problem to be managed. They are not a body to be controlled. They are not an image to be corrected. They are the reason many of us, most of us I would say, are still here. So to my mother, Ruby Denise Smith, and to black mothers everywhere, and to black women who carry the weight of history and the future at the same time, we see you. We honor you. We love you. And we thank you. So, this is the inaugural episode of Black Truth Daily. The goal is to do it at least 4 days a week. And on this show, we're going to cover everything from politics that impact us, news stories that impact us or that are about us, positive, negative, in between. We're going to talk about black popular culture, whether it's music, television, reality TV, movies. We're going to have this place to be a space where blackness is not interrupted. You don't have to code switch here. You show up here and your black ass is home. This is a place for blackness to be okay as is. Black Truth exists for one reason. Black Truth Daily, this show, exists for one reason. And that is because truth has always been considered dangerous. But silence has always been deadly. This show is not here to comfort people, make you feel good all the time. It's here for clarity. Not to argue, not to debate, not to fight, but to document. Here, we believe in free speech, especially when that free speech makes the power dynamics and the power to be uncomfortable. Because every generation, and I do mean every generation, needs a black voice for their now. Truth don't need permission from nobody to exist. Truth don't need anyone to say you can show up. Only thing truth needs are witnesses, people to testify to that truth. And in this inaugural episode, you have gotten a lot. But I will tell you this at the end of every episode. This has been my Black Truth.